All right, I have still two more categories I would like to get over when it comes to DLC fighters. Actually,
Sure.
three.
I was
Actually,
going to say
three.
we haven't even talked about first parties yet.
No, exactly, but I want to save the best for last, as you know.
Of course.
So let's begin with indie characters. Now that we got this very authentic costume for Sans and Megalovania, do you think we could see Shantae?
No, not even close. No. I think Sans being a Mii costume makes it a little more likely for Frisk to be in the game. But if it ain't Undertale, we're not getting an indie rep. Like, full stop, we're not getting one. I think Shantae being a spirit, Shovel Knight being an assist trophy, like, I think those are the different tiers of indie characters. You know, Commander Video is a trophy as well in Smash Wii U and 3DS. So I think that's the level that Shantae's on. As much I know Shantae's, you know, demanded in North America and Europe, but Japan does not really care about that character. And I think if they're going to put an indie rep in there, it's going to be an indie rep that has a lot of ties to Japan. And I think Undertale, maybe Cave Story would be like the only other one, but that's a huge stretch to me. I think it would have to be Frisk or nothing.
What about a combined indie and meme character like, I don't know, Steve from Minecraft?
Now, Steve, I actually think, especially now that we've seen Sans as a Mii Fighter costume, to me, Steve screams Mii Fighter costume sword fighter, because they wouldn't have to do anything. Obviously, Steve doesn't have any expressions. He's just a bunch of blocks with a giant sword. So that'd be so easy to make a very interesting Mii costume for the Mii sword fighter for Steve and then throw that in a future pack. I don't even think Steve would necessarily need to be a character. They could easily just throw him in over Sword Fighter, and that'd be that. They wouldn't even have to reanimate anything. They would just... Obviously, they could even change the proportions of the character. If you look at the Sans Mii costume, the proportions are a little bit different when you're wearing the full Sans Mii costume than if you're, you know, wearing the Sans mask with a different outfit. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to create a really interesting Mii costume for these characters now. I really do feel like Sans opened up the floodgates in terms of, you know, full-out costumes for the Miis.
And it also opens up the opportunity for many characters that were, like, kind of meme characters, I guess.
Right. Now, I could see Shantae being a Mii costume. I could actually see that happening. Maybe over, like, the Brawler. That'd be kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. So kind of making the Mii characters, or costumes for Mii characters, the way you put in indies into the game. That could be...
Exactly. And honestly, considering the fact they're already working with Microsoft in a pretty close capacity, I would not be shocked to see, you know, like a Steve Mii costume over the Sword Fighter, or even like a Master Chief one over the Gunner.
Okay, since we are on the topic of Mii characters, we can't get away from this one. Val Luigi.
So here's the thing about Waluigi. I think, obviously, Waluigi fans have not been kind to Sakurai. And in fact, they've been very rude to Sakurai over the course of the past few years. So I think maybe that might hinder him from putting in a Waluigi as a character, but I do think there is demand for him, and I think he is, if there's going to be any assist trophy that gets bumped up to playable status, he's the one I could see it happening with, because his whole moveset and his whole character revolves around cheating, right? So I already can visualize what the Waluigi trailer would look like, where, you know, a character picks up an assist trophy and then it doesn't work and they're shaking it next to their head, and then all of a sudden you see the glass breaking on the assist trophy, you see Waluigi punching through it, and then splash screen, Waluigi cheats his way in or something like that. And then you see he's full on playable status. But I mean, that's, like I said, the only assist trophy character I could see being bumped up to playable status in this game. I think there's a lot of assist trophies that maybe in future games might get bumped up to playable status, but in terms of this game in particular, he's the only one I could see Sakurai going out of his way for.
And that's, I think, also was a good transition from indie to memes to Nintendo. There's one character that I really see that everyone has been talking about. It must be Bandana Waddle Dee at this point.
Right. I think if they're going to throw in, and that's another character too that wouldn't necessarily need a stage, wouldn't even necessarily need music, right? They could do the same thing for Bandana Dee that they did with Piranha Plant. They could literally just create that character and then throw them into the game. If you look on smashbros.com/buy/DLC, and the only reason I know that URL off the top of my head is because we just talked about this on Japan Time, you'll notice that the DLC is broken up in two sections. There's one that says Challenger Packs, which lists, you know, the stages and the characters and the bundles. And we see on the site already, you see Joker and Hero and Banjo, but underneath it, it says specifically individual DLC. And it just says add the Piranha Plant fighter to your game, you see the Piranha Plant, and it says specifically stage and music not included. I think if Bandanity is going to get into the game, it's going to be exactly like Piranha Plant. Maybe they'll have a little trailer for him, but ultimately, Bandanity gets added, right? They already have all the Kirby stages. They already have a bunch of Kirby music. They don't really need to add anything else. You can just throw in Bandanity. And I do think that's a character that people would buy, and that wouldn't require like too much additional effort on their part to throw in.
So, do you think that Nintendo still has any IPs left that could become a full DLC pack?
Oh, well, I do. But I think the thing about this is how many of these characters do they want to save for the next Smash game, right? If they end up doing like a Smash reboot for the next one, they could pull like a Street Fighter 3 on us, right? Where they have the main cast from maybe the original game, plus like, you know, the really, really iconic Nintendo characters like Inkling and Villager. And, you know, they have that core set of maybe 20. And then on top of that, they start adding in like other relatively new first-party characters. Because I think one of those characters that I was talking about in terms of an assist trophy that'll be bumped up to playable status at some point, it's got to be Springman, right? We're going to get an ARMS rep eventually. Maybe we can get Twintel or Ribbon Girl in this game, but I feel like Springman's time is sort of past. But if you look at like the Switch era, there's so many characters they can put in. Springman, Rex and Pyra, Akira, the Howard twins from Astral Chain that just came out. Obviously that game's got great music that can put a bunch of stuff in there. The game that literally just got announced yesterday, Ring Fit Challenge. I think they could throw the Ring Fit trainer in there, maybe as an Echo Fighter of Wii Fit or do something interesting with them. Three Houses, obviously. Massive success. Best-selling Fire Emblem game of all time in like its first month or something. They could throw in Byleth, Edelgard, Claude, Dimitri, any number of the characters from Three Houses. A Sword and Shield Pokemon, the Splatoon 2 cast. They could put in, you know, the Octoling agent. So yeah, I think there's a lot of options for the modern era Nintendo. But in terms of like a full-on DLC pack just for the first-party franchise, I would say the best chance is maybe Astral Chain at this point. I would say maybe Astral Chain. But as for individual fighters, I think it's possible that we can get a Three Houses rep in this one.
That makes sense, because we didn't get any new non-Echo Fire Emblem character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and we know how Sakurai loves his Fire Emblem reps.
Right.
So it's kind of a given, but the game, Fire Emblem Three Houses was delayed from 2018 to 2019, and then also from spring to summer, and that way it didn't make sense to make it a part of the first DLC packs, which is probably focuses anyway on third parties.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna get a full DLC pack from Fire Emblem, then I agree it must be from Three Houses. And in terms of Pokemon, I think they will actually wait until the next Smash game, because when we look at Pokemon inclusions in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, they usually wait until a few years have passed, because they added Incineroar from Pokemon Sun and Moon, though we didn't get a stage from Sun and Moon. So that kind of...
Well, to be fair, I think Sun and Moon was in development right around the time this was in development. Like, they started development on this game during the year that Sun and Moon came out. So I do think Incineroar was probably one of the last fighters that was on their roster when they were putting this game together. I think they knew, you know, Sun and Moon Pokemon. They probably had that written on there, and it was just a matter of, you know, finding out the popularity and finding out the other characters, whether it was going to be Decidueye or Incineroar, and that's how they eventually came to Incineroar.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a feeling that they might save that for the next Smash game. But I do agree that Fire Emblem is in a very hot position to get another rep and another stage and songs, obviously, from Three Houses.
Yeah, and I will say this, and I'm the biggest Xenoblade fanboy in the world, so trust me when I say this. I don't mean to hurt any Xenoblade fans out there, but I don't think we're going to get Rex and Pyra as individual DLC, just because he went out of his way when this game first started to say it was a little too late to add them, and I do think that because they're such a hotly demanded character, that is somebody that would save for the eventual next Smash game. Right, and I think if you look, you know, towards that next game, like Sakurai even mentioned, it's going to be very hard to get all these companies back together again for, you know, a future Smash Bros. Game. There are very few of the third-party characters that are in this that I think would make a return in another game, right? As we talked about in the very beginning of this, I think Sakurai probably pitched this to a lot of these third parties like, hey, this is a love letter to Iwata. You love Iwata, right? You'll let us put your character in our game. So I feel like that's how so many of these characters were able to get in. Because I really don't think outside of maybe like Mega Man and Sonic. I don't expect most of these third parties to come back for future iterations. Bayonetta, I guess, too. Bayonetta's pretty much a first-party character at this point, but Bayonetta, Mega Man, and Sonic, I think, are the only ones that are pretty much locks for whatever the next game's going to be. All the other ones, when it comes to either Street Fighter, Castlevania, Banjo, Persona, I think all that stuff's up in the air, especially the Square Enix characters.
Because the question is, how long will this go on? The first way I see it is maybe throughout 2020.
I think it's going to go through like mid-2021 is my guess. I think we're going to get 5 more characters. My guess is we're going to get like another, even if they don't market it as a challenger pack, I think we're going to get another 5. And then I think they're going to end with like at least one heavy hitter. Maybe that'll be the last of those 5. But one thing that we haven't talked about at all, which I think we need to talk about now that they said there's going to be additional fighters that aren't part of challenger packs, are Echo Fighters. I think the opportunity is there for them to add tons of Echo Fighters as relatively cheap DLC, right? We've got like $4.99 you could buy Piranha Plant separately, or like we talked about Bandanity maybe eventually being thrown in there. I think that would be like a $4.99 type character. But who's to say like they couldn't make an Echo Fighter, throw them in there for like $3 and maybe do like the Octolings from Splatoon 2 over the Inklings, or Jean from Bayonetta over Bayonetta. Like, I think there are other options for Echo Fighters, and people aren't really talking about that, but I do think they're going to see this as an opportunity to create more Echoes.
So, if we sum it up, the possibilities that are here are pretty much full-on DLC packs, so with character, stage, soundtrack.
Yep.
We have the option of just having the character, just like Piranha Plant, before all the other Fighter Pass characters.
And I think in terms of those individual characters that don't have a stage, don't have the music that are like Piranha Plant, I would say the two most likely for that, in my opinion, would be Bandanity and Geno. I think both of those are like heavily requested characters that would not need additional music tracks or stages. And then if you're going to go way far into the future, I think maybe Waluigi would fall into that category too. But the two I'm thinking of right off the top of my head would definitely be Geno and Bandanity.
But going back to first parties, I want another Zelda representative, because we haven't seen new Zelda characters for a while. And I know that the focus was to redesign and refreshen the Zelda cast. But I think that as a part of the DLC pack, we could see another Breath of the Wild character included.
That'd be cool. Who do you have in mind?
I would love to see Monk Mouse Koshia.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So yeah, that's a possibility, and
I do think actually Zelda is maybe ripe for an Echo Fighter. I could see them doing something with Zelda. Maybe Marin from Link's Awakening, considering the the new remake of that game. I could see them putting her over Zelda. That seems like a pretty easy one. Or I could also see Impa over Sheik as well. But I do think of all of the major franchises of Nintendo's, that is one that is kind of odd that we haven't gotten a new fighter in a while. So I do think an Echo Fighter for Zelda would be pretty neat. Also,
exactly.
Dude, Funky Kong over Donkey Kong is another one. I'm thinking about like the Donkey Kong franchises, or
Dixie.
I'm thinking Dixie over Diddy, of course. Dixie over Diddy is another one, and that's a character that a lot of people have asked about that I think would be pretty easy to implement. That they could throw in as like an Echo Fighter and say, hey, this is our big headliner Echo Fighter character, $3, and you get Dixie Kong in the game as a playable character over Diddy. I think that would satisfy a lot of people. One too, we were talking about this earlier with the Namco characters, right? And there really isn't enough Namco representation. Could they put another one in? Miss Pac-Man. Make a Pac-Man Echo for Miss Pac-Man.
I feel like Ultimate is reaching the point where there's no game that can really rival it in the future, and it's probably also Sakurai's intention that this game is going to be your legacy, Iwata.
Yeah.
Because Smash is still by many considered as kind of the child of HAL. Yes, Sakurai left HAL and founded Sora Limited, but for him it's still the fact that they developed this game together, and this is in kind of the embodiment of what the potential of this franchise has.
Yeah.
And thus I think that this is kind of the final push by Sakurai and the final goodbye to Iwata. And from there on, he's ready to start kind of new pages for the franchise, but also maybe for himself working on other IPs, like as you mentioned.
I agree.
And I think that is a fitting conclusion. And as always, make sure to leave a like on these videos, and also go out and check out Rogersbase, because he does a ton of Smash Bros. Anime and a lot of other Nintendo reactions. And well, what do you not cover at this point, really?
At this point, I feel like I do everything. Yeah, Nintendo and anime and manga and everything. Yeah, vlogs from Japan, everything.
Exactly, but it's always a pleasure to have you here. It's always so much fun.
You guys enjoyed this discussion, because now me and Conrad are going to be talking about Attack on Titan for the next 30 minutes. So.
Oh yeah! Oh my god! Oh my god! Anyways, thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe to our channels. Press that shiny notification bell if you haven't already, and also click in the end cards to both of our channels. We will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.
Bye bye.